On today's edition of Beat Diabetes, I'll be talking about a very common food, a very innocent food that people consider to be perfectly fine that can wreak havoc on your blood sugar. Well, here is an incredible comment that really blessed me to read it. Actually, I've had it on my computer for some time. But this individual says, my own doctor has been referring his patients to this channel. Years ago, he listened to me. We spent the whole hour visit watching Dennis. So this guy has a doctor's appointment, and somehow they pull me up on the computer and watch me for his visit with the doctor. He says, then I made an appointment for a month later. I showed him how dramatically I was able to drop my A1C. I went from 5.5 to 4.7 in just 1 month. He says I had my insulin resistance under control by then. So he was doing well before. 5.5 is not too shabby, but dropped it even more. And so he says his doctor tells all his colleagues about Beat Diabetes, and he's a huge supporter of this channel. Well, how cool is that? So welcome, doctor, to Beat Diabetes. And if you want to do an interview sometime, let me know. Or any of you other doctors. I love to hear doctors that can support this low-carb message, and there are lots of them. Here's another individual I thought I would share before we get to the main topic here today. This person says, I was 52 years old when I was diagnosed. My doctor said, you need to watch your sugar intake. My fasting blood sugar was 125, but my random blood sugar would rise up to over 300, probably at the peaks. So he says, I went home. I thought about that statement, watch your sugar intake. That's the doctor's advice. That's the sum and the whole of it. Watch your sugar intake. He says, when I was born, my mother heard those same words from her doctor. Watch your sugar intake. She died 19 years later with all kinds of complications. And now, a half century later, I was hearing the same words. Watch your sugar intake. I thought, something is very wrong. If 52 years after my mother was diagnosed, doctors are still telling me the same thing. I tried various herbal treatments for the next 3 years. They did help, but I wasn't satisfied. Then I found Beat Diabetes, Dr. Bernstein, Dr. Jason Fung. After researching on Google and YouTube, best thing that ever happened to me, I've never been on any medications for diabetes. I'm even off high blood pressure medication. Thank you, Dennis. So I thought it's a very powerful point. He says, when I was born, his mother apparently had gestational diabetes, and the doctor said, watch your sugar intake. And her diabetes just got worse. 19 years later, she dies after having all kinds of complications from diabetes. And now here he is, 52 years later, and the doctor says the exact same words, watch your sugar intake. So am I saying we should not watch our sugar intake? Well, of course not. That is one good thing, but that's just not enough. It's like hurling teaspoons of water at a forest fire. You're doing some good, I guess, but not much. So better to say watch your carb intake, but don't just watch it, slash it. So watching can just mean, well, casually reduce it, be a little moderate, take it a little easy. No, don't take it easy. Slash it. Get radical, and you'll be amazed at the victories you see. So, amen to that. All right, let's get to the main topic here, and that is the innocent food item that almost everybody uses and everybody assumes is perfectly fine, and yet it is not really for diabetics, pre-diabetics, people with metabolic issue. Actually, you could argue it's not a food, it is a drink, but a drink can be a food if it's not water. Water's not a food at all. It's just water. But when you're talking about this item, it is a sort of a food, and what I'm talking about is milk. This individual says, in January of 2022, not all that long ago, beginning of this year, I was diagnosed type 2, A1C of 7.6, around a 171 daily average for my glucose. My doctor was ready to put me on medicine. I asked for some time to make dietary changes. I requested a prescription for a glucose monitor. Now, this is the kind you wear. He got an Abbott glucose monitor that you wear, the continuous glucose meter. And he says, with these new tools, I confirmed the daily and weekly readings were in sync to the A1C. The immediate feedback does not allow me to hide from the truth of what I was eating and its effect on me directly. And, you know, if you can get a continuous glucose meter with your insurance, do it. But here's the problem with those. They help you out so well, and they work so well, typically, to give you an idea of what you can eat and what you can't, that after a while you'll stop being diabetic, at least by the numbers. And then your insurance will say, hey, you don't have enough diabetes anymore for us to continue to pay for it. And that's the problem. People fix their diabetes and their numbers are down, their A1C is down, their fasting glucose is down, and so they have to pay for it themselves. And sadly, that's tough. But what you can do is get one and use it occasionally, maybe once a year or so, and see what you can learn from that. Anyway, he gets a CGM, and he says, on one of your programs, you called out milk, which I consumed at a high rate. So he was a big milk drinker. Well, when I was a kid, that was the standard drink. For lunch, for supper, big glass of milk. That's what we do. I can't remember the last time I had a big glass of milk. I just don't drink it. But anyway, he says, you called out milk, but I was a big milk drinker, so I was a doubting Thomas. I tested the product several times before giving it up completely. I miss milk a lot, but I don't drink it anymore either. So what happened? Well, he checked his CGM, and he watched his glucose go up with milk. Now, let me say, milk is better than soda. So if someone says to you, I'm going to give you a terrible beating if you don't drink a big glass of milk or a big glass of soda, take your choice. If someone came up to me and said that, I'd take the milk over the soda any day. But you know what? I've lived a long time now on this earth, and no one has ever threatened me that way and told me I had to either drink milk or drink soda. So how about giving both up? So anyway, he did, and he says, I also made some other changes based on what he was learning from his CGM, his continuous glucose monitor. And he says, my last 90-day average is 113, which is about 5.6 A1C. So bam, into the fives by watching what foods drive it up and what foods drive it down. And one of those offending foods was milk. So here's the sad thing. You don't have to do without something very, very close to milk. You say, no, you're going to tell us to drink almond milk, right? Well, no, that's not what I do normally. Almond milk is okay in some cases, but truth is I'm not that crazy about almond milk myself. What I typically do is I dilute heavy whipping cream with about 1 part whipping cream and 2 or 3 parts water, which is like you're either having a third heavy whipping cream or a quarter of the heavy whipping cream, and the rest is water. Now, why do that? Well, first of all, heavy whipping cream has about half the carbs as milk does. Milk has 12 grams of carbs for a cup. Heavy whipping cream has about 6. But you don't have to have full-strength heavy whipping cream. In fact, that's too strong. I wouldn't even want to drink a cup of heavy whipping cream. That would be nauseating. So what you do is you take about a 1 part heavy whipping cream and about 3 parts water, and you're diluting it tremendously. And the heavy whipping cream is about half the carbs of milk anyway. So milk is 12 grams for a cup. But if you're drinking a big 10-ounce glass, you're getting more than that. So you're getting quite a bit of carbs. But the heavy whipping cream is half, but you don't drink it full strength. You drink it about a quarter compared to the water. So you're way down there. You're having a big 10-ounce glass of what seems like milk for maybe 3 or 4 grams of carbs as opposed to 16 or so. So you can still get away with milk. When I have my chia seed pudding, when I have my keto cereal where I throw some almond or coconut chips and some almond slices and different things, some coconut, unsweetened coconut in there and so forth, I will use some heavy whipping cream. I'll just take a glass out and pour it up just a small amount, and then I'll just pour in some water. Presto changeo, bam, there you go. You've got your own milk. Here's what's cool. I like it better. Now, you may not. And, of course, it depends on how much you dilute it. If you dilute it about 5 parts water to 1 part heavy whipping cream, it may taste kind of thin and scrawny. But about 1 part whipping cream to 3 parts water works pretty well. And you are using far less carbs. So here's the word of wisdom for you milk drinkers. Say hasta la vista. No, that's not right. That means until tomorrow. I think it does. My Spanish isn't too great. How about adios, sayonara, goodbye, see you never. Say goodbye to milk. And if you need something to make some keto cereal, to make some chia seed pudding, so forth, and I wouldn't drink it, but if you need it for any of those things, just dilute it with some water. And you will be miles ahead, or kilometers ahead for you that don't use miles, compared to milk. So give up the milk, go to the heavy whipping cream plus water, or go to almond milk. It's not as rich and thick, but it's not bad, especially if you're going to use some kind of a keto cereal that's going to have its own flavor. Benedict and I would like to invite you to study the Bible with us through our podcast. Join us in our home as we do our morning Bible studies. With a podcast, there's nothing to see. You just listen. And that means you can enjoy our Bible study while you drive in your car, go for a walk, or work out at the gym. Our podcast is called Discover the Word with Den and Ben, and you can find it in most platforms where you get your podcasts. And if you know nothing at all about podcasts and how they work, there's a link in the description that will help get you started.